Look, I need you watching our backs. You're a better shot than I am.
Huh, really?
No?
Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is my Gears of War 4 Insane Difficulty video walkthrough. This is Act 1, Chapter 2, In and Out. This is an important level, this one. Not only is it the introduction of some new mechanics, but it's also going to solidify a lot of situations further down the line. So the Fabricator in this game is... it's a hub zone that you have to defend, and it's a mechanic that the game uses quite a lot. Can you remember was it Gears of War 2, where you got to Act 3, and you went through the area with the sires, and then at the end I think you had to carry a box out of that zone shooting stuff, and there was 2 people needed at either side of it, and you kind of dragged it really slow, and you were like, what the fuck is this mechanic, it's dumb. Well, this game has that, but they've sped it up. It's a much smoother, much more interesting mechanic of carrying a box with 2 people. And don't get me wrong, it's never going to be Shakespeare, it's never going to be romantic and dramatic, it's just 2 dudes carrying a box. Sometimes a chick. Ooh, dramatic. But it's better here, and it means something here because you can put it down. And when you put it down, it acts as kind of a central hub. And in this particular chapter, you can make weapons from it, which I think is a great idea. And I actually thought they were going to use this mechanic more than they do. I had these images that we would have kind of a support team with us who would carry the Fabricator, maybe just the 2 dudes that are in your team. And every so often you could put it down and use it for resources, but it's kind of only in this and the next level, and then in a few other instances. But I like that idea of swapping out weapons and having a resource to give you these utilities. I think it's really cool. But after this, you don't use it for that. You use it for setting up a horde defense mode kind of level. And the game loves this mechanic. It has an entire chapter dedicated to it. It has actually more than 1 chapter dedicated to it, but there's a one on the list that you'll remember, I think, because it's long. But just this idea of... remember how in a horde map you would go with your friends, you would find a corner that you liked that looked like it was defensible, and then you would, plant your roots, set your defences up, and then come wave 40 you realise just how undefensible it was because shit gets crazy? Just like that, guys. They've ingrained the idea of horde mode into the campaign, and I think it's a double-sided sword. I think it's clever because it's organic and it's dynamic to the spirit of what Gears has become, but it also kind of gets the chocolate in the peanut butter for me. I like horde and I like campaign, but I like them to be different things. So when those moments turned up, whenever we came to a Fabricator, look how fast you move with it, by the way, how cool is that? I don't remember it being this fast. I remember it being really fucking awkward in the second game, but that game's quite old now, so we've got to give it some liberties. But every time you got a Fabricator, you knew you were in for hell. You knew you were in for a defense section where the enemies would never stop coming, the checkpoints were never going to be kind, and you knew it was going to be tumultuous, to say the least. And I've got no problem with the game being difficult. I want it to be difficult. The harder this game is, the better my guide does. But it's Gears, and we all know there's ways to cheat Gears' insane campaign, and all the motherfuckers do that. So nobody earns it anymore, and nobody wants to earn it, which I find disappointing, and I don't know why they don't fix that. The Coalition seem to be really good at, listening to the community and amending things and stuff. What's the point in giving an achievement for beating Insane and making it this big thing and designing it so that it's tricky, if it can be alleviated by exploiting the way the game works in co-op? I don't get it. But this is the beginning of the fight in this level. What's going to happen here is a really cool mechanic. I like this a lot, and this is also something that I don't think works enough in this game. At the end of Gears 2, when you were in the Hive, the game introduced a lot of mobile cover. It was kind of one of the new features. There was a few creatures that worked that way. There were switches that lifted things up, and it made for almost a dynamic battlefield, and I never felt that it really became as good as it could be as a mechanic, because I thought it could be really interesting. Vanquish took this mechanic and did it really, really scarily on the final boss, but I felt it made the battlefield feel like it was an enemy too, and I think that gives it a lot of character. In this zone, you're on a circular platform, and you can press buttons that will pull the cover up on certain parts of the circle, but not all of them, and you cannot have all of them, so you have to choose where your cover is. So you have to dynamically shift between where the cover is, and also it cuts off these lanes into the circle, so you can use it to drop people into the abyss, and It adds a whole extra dimension to the fight, which I really like, and it benefits the player for knowing where the enemies are coming from, and I think that's great. Do you see the clamps that stop the platform? They instantly kill you. I got squashed on my first playthrough. The first thing that happened, I'm stood there like a tit and it landed on my head, so don't do it. But this is the part where the robots turn up, the DBs. Wherever you see the klaxon of the siren turning, that's the doorway that they're going to come through. And I figured out something that's a lot of people will figure out. If you throw a shock grenade, all you have to do is shoot the robots once each, and they'll die. It'll force the next spawn, and if you throw another grenade, you can chain spawns, kills, and you can kill them very easily. And then if you go back to the fabricator, you can buy more grenades, because they're very cheap in this sequence. But I'm not going to do that, because I kind of just do my own thing. And the only part of this that's challenging is, did you see how much damage that did to me in one hit? He put me to that kind of damage range, which is one hit away from death in one burst. So at this range, their weapon, incredibly dangerous. You cannot stay out of cover. You just can't do it. It's really dangerous. But as I was saying, sorry, the only part here that I think you're going to have issues with is when two doors happen at the same time, because they start to flank you. And the enemies in this game do a surprisingly decent job of flanking, but they're not always the smartest when they're there. They could be worse, but it opens up a mechanic that I felt in this game more than I felt in any other Gears. The cover works on a very binary system in Gears, and it's all to do with parallels. Lines upon lines. So the basic principle of cover in this game is that anything adjacent from where you are facing cannot hit you. There are of course exceptions to this, but anything else and you can be fucked. Like, that was a scary moment just then. But blind fire with that gun is incredibly powerful, so use it. If you have somebody who is diagonal from you, they could hit you in cover. If you're in cover against something that's to the right of them, instead of adjacent from them diagonally, they will hit you in cover. So even though you are low and can't seemingly be seen from where they are, they can still hit you because they're so accurate. And the idea becomes, you have to put yourself in the piece of cover that faces the threat. And I know this sounds obvious, and this is what a lot of Gears has been like in essence, but this game makes it way, way more severe than I've ever experienced. There are times when you're in cover, and there's a guy that might be just off to your side, just have a little bit, or maybe have a slight bit of elevation, and because he's off to your left, slightly elevated, he hit you with a sniper rifle and instantly killed you. Even though feasibly, in other Gears, he would not have hit you. Because let's think about this, right, guys? If you could be hit in Gears of War while you were blind firing, how the fuck would you blind fire your Lancer or your shotgun at Ram when he's shooting you with a Troika that he's carrying? You wouldn't be able to do it. Because that gun murders you in the time it takes you to blink. So when you're sticking your hand out of cover to shoot him at point blank range, because we've all done it on Insane because it's tricky, why didn't you die? Because you cannot get hit when you're blind firing outside of torque bows and maybe grenades that land on top. That's the rules. That's kind of always been the rules. There was always those rare moments where weird shit happened, like maybe you got sniped, but that's rare as fuck. Boom shot, definitely, because the boom shot's bullshit. It explodes like Rice Krispies, they go everywhere, and then you're just dead. And then you fire it and no one dies. It's confusing. But in this game, it's not like that. In this game, only with the Markser rifle and occasionally they just shoot your hand. And it doesn't make sense, because it's never been an aspect of Gears to me. In the multiplayer, definitely. Multiplayer is different. In multiplayer, you don't sit in cover when someone has a sniper rifle, because you can passively see your fucking head. Like, I understand how the cover works. I understand it logically. When you're in cover, you're never really in cover, because you're too bulky. You're a massive muscled idiot, aren't you, with a massive thick neck. You're never truly in cover. But the games have always worked with that nod-wink knowing knowledge that they still can't hit you, even though you can see them. And we've been able to hit the Locust, even though the rules don't apply there the same. We can see them the same way they can see us, and that's why we shoot them in the head when they're in cover, or we shoot their arms and shit, and it's probably quite unfair for them. But when it happens to the player, and it's not been something that's been set before, that's happened that frequently, it feels really jarring. So there are moments in this game where you're going to die in cover, and you're going to wonder why, because you have a bedrock of experience in those older Gears games where it worked differently. And I have no doubt that there were instances in the other games where it happened, but it didn't feel the same way it feels in this one, so it really stuck out. So I'm trying my best to warn you guys, you can deal with it, but it happens. And it happens the worst in the prologue at the very beginning on that first bit, and it happens really poorly on the Swarmak boss. But that's just because there's so many enemies shooting you from so many angles. You're going to learn when you're safe in cover and when you're not, because you're going to die. But thank you for watching, I hope the guide's helping, and you take care now.